super excited to sit down and chat with Markie Hageman. She's another California girl who has created the community of Girls Eat Beef Too and has jumped right into raising a cattle herd of her own. So, Markie, if you would not mind kind of to get things started today, telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on. Of course, this is always fun to chat with people about my story. It's nice to know that people like to know my story. Um, but yeah, so I'm from Central California. I'm from the like lower Central Valley, but I currently live in the northern part of the Central Valley now. And I like I tell everyone, I didn't grow up in production agriculture. I, grew up with a very limited understanding and view of agriculture just because I grew up around it. I was in, I'm in the biggest like dairy area in, California and the United States, really. So I knew that it existed and everything, but I just didn't understand anything about the business side of it. But I went to college and had a change of heart, I guess, because I started out as a fashion merchandising major and I was going to move to LA and go to fashion school. And I ended up in college changing my major to animal science and tried to do the whole horse thing and realized that that was just not where I was going to find any type of success. And so I bounced around from major to major for years and years. I did a lot of different things and didn't feel like I fit into any of those. Didn't feel like I sat in like my crop science class and my beef production class years and years ago and was like, what are they talking about? So I kept changing majors and finally, I landed on agribusiness and graduated. And now I'm here and I just started my beef herd last May of 2020. And I created the Girls Eat Beef Too. That's kind of a whole other story, which I'm sure we'll get to. But I created Girls Eat Beef Too, I think in like 2017 or 2018, and have just been kind of working on promoting beef and, just diving into the beef industry. So that's kind of where my passion is right now. But I have like a really weird, jagged like journey to get to where I am. So it's been interesting. I enjoy it, but gosh, it's exhausting sometimes.
I can only imagine. But yeah, you do have such a kind of unique story. Obviously the background of things, but then to kind of where you are today, that's when I kind of like found you and started like really like paying attention to you and your story. I was like, okay, wow, this girl has figured some stuff out for sure. And then we have a lot kind of in common as well. So where at in California are you now exactly? I know you like actual town wise.
So it's called Hillmar.
Okay.
And a lot of people don't know where that is. So I just usually say like the Turlock area. That's
Okay.
what I know,
Yes, so I'm originally from Brentwood, which a lot of people don't know where that is, but very close to you. So like Brentwood is close to like Antioch or Pittsburgh.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so we're not too far from each other. If I was still in California, I guess my hometown really.
Oh,
But
where are you at now?
so I'm in Texas now. I
Oh, okay.
Yep, after I came here for college and I loved the Lone Star State so much, so stuck around for a while.
That's cool. Yeah, it's good to get out of California sometimes.
Yes. And are you originally from California or did you move there?
Yeah, no, I'm from
Okay.
Tulare, but I
Okay.
did I talk about Alabama a lot because my family pretty much relocated there and I lived there for a short amount of time, which is why I have the Auburn sweater on. Sorry,
Got
Texas.
it.
But um but yeah, so a lot of people are like, "You're from Alabama?" But I'm actually from California, so.
Gotcha. And so too, like, okay, so let's dive back into kind of what you talked about in the beginning as far as not having any agriculture background. So how did you go from being a fashion major to then finishing with agribusiness?
Okay, so um that's where it gets hard because I grew up riding horses, and when I was in like middle school to high school, we lived on about roughly 20 acres, and it was just like a horse boarding facility is
Okay.
essentially what it was. So I grew up that was after my parents divorced and my mom moved, to the we called it the ranch, but um, I grew up riding horses and then showing hogs and lambs in 4-H, but when it's just horse stall, like horse boarding facility, you're not really getting a lot of production exposure, right?
Mhm.
Because that's a whole other industry.
Right.
My mom and stepdad would buy and sell horses just, to train them and break them, but it wasn't anything impressive, by any means. I don't like to brag about it. I learned a lot about horses, but nothing else, like almost no other animals. We had some goats and we had like roping steers and things like that, but it was a very limited view and I was very young. So there's not a lot you can understand at that point anyway. Well, I got into high school, and because I was spending I would spend 1 week with my mom on the ranch and 1 week with my dad. That's how we split our time.
Gotcha.
And my dad lived in the city, and I don't know why, but I think for some reason I've just always had a very dramatic personality, and so I was all about going to LA. I was gonna become an actress. I was gonna go to fashion school. I think I watched in high school too much of The Hills and Disney Channel, and that was my problem. So I had these goals and I was all about it, and I don't know what happened. My mom when I so in high school, I wasn't in FFA, I wasn't in anything. I pretty much stopped riding horses at that point in my life. I was in journalism, I was in yearbook, I was in drama. I took some fashion classes and things like that. And I just like removed myself from our ranch. I was, at dances with friends and stuff all the time. I wasn't on the ranch, which is not normal, I think, for a lot of kids who grow up in the industry. They want to be on the ranch. And me, I was like, I don't want anything to do with this crap. I don't want to sit there and feed the animals all the time. So I just distanced myself, and I had that opportunity. I say opportunity, but I had that because I had that separation between my parents, right? So it gave me two totally different lives.
Right, I'm sure.
So when I like got out of high school and I was telling my mom how I was gonna like move to LA, my mom, who is just like a very down to earth, like simple person, she was like, really now? How are you gonna pay for that? And then she was like, what about your animals? I think that was the one thing that made me think, oh yeah, like I had a horse at that time and I had my dog and my cat, and she was like, you can't take them with you. Like you're not gonna be able to have your animals. And to me, that was like, oh, wait a second. Like my animals are what I really, really love, right? So then she started talking to me about what my options were if I stayed home. And she started talking to me about agriculture. And she was like, you could do animal science, you could do all these different things. And I think back then I probably had big dreams of becoming a vet, which who doesn't at that
Right.
point in life,
Right.
right? I quickly learned, no, that was not going to happen. But yeah, so that's how it really happened. My mom was a big influence on that. She was the one who like kind of brought me back into the industry. Like she entered me into rodeo queen contests, and she told me the reason she did it was because she knew I was kind of pulling away from the ag industry and like, horseback riding. And the only way that she could bring me back in was if she found something that let me dress up and have sparkles.
There you go.
And that did it. That kind of helped me stay connected a little bit throughout my life. But yeah, I do have her to thank for that. And that's how I ended up, transitioning into agriculture. And that was just that's been a crazy journey ever since I did that. So it's been very interesting for me, I'd say.
Well, yeah, and kind of, I guess, too, you had like you said, a unique situation where you kind of got the city side of things and the ranch side of things. So the fact that you kind of pulled away and then now ended up back into it is kind of a funny turn of events, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I think that honestly it could have gone either way, honestly. Like
Right.
if I were being 100% honest with myself, if I could have figured out how to afford LA, I probably would have gone and done that for some time.
Right.
Just because there's still parts of me that still loves the big city life and still like wishes I had done that. but I do think like it was just a God thing, and I'm where I'm supposed to be. And I think that having that background of like kind of not wanting to be in the ag industry has allowed me to connect to people in different ways. So
Right.
it's useful, but yeah, for sure. I wish I still would have gone to LA for at least a little bit just to experience it.
Yeah, just to kind of get that taste. But since you kind of just mentioned that too, since ag was kind of your plan B, and now you have created this platform where you're trying to advocate for the ag industry and then also the beef industry as well. How do you think that kind of has helped you maybe relate to some people who are not agriculture backgrounded people?
So I'm glad you asked that because that's kind of how my meme creation started. Um, because I'm such a big, like, I'm not a super like business type person. I'm not a serious person by any means. And I'm definitely like, if I can reference pop culture and things, like I'm gonna do it. And to me, like I love memes, and I've always loved, the social aspect of like social media and all of those different like TikToks and things like that. Like as I'm getting older, it's hard to keep up with that.
Yeah.
but
And
but
there's so much all the time, right?
I'm like, how do you people have all this time to like learn how to do these like things? But to me, the kind of pop culture stuff has always intrigued me. And I think that the memes came in because I realized that in our industry, in social media, especially with our industry, it's all pretty the same kind of content, right?
Mhm.
Like, and I'm gonna say this is my disclaimer. I love like ranch wives, and I love the traditional women of agriculture, but to me, I didn't fit that image, and I felt like I wanted to represent women who were more like me, who you're not going to find me as a ranch wife because that's just never going to happen.
Right.
And you're not going to find me cooking recipes or anything like that because I'm not a good person in the kitchen. So those memes were like, I knew that I had that niche in social media, and I was able to like play on my love of like trendy social media online stuff and also educate about beef. So I pulled both worlds together, I think, with that successfully or not successfully, depending on who you ask, maybe.
Right.
But I think that it just really like allowed me to kind of like enjoy the both worlds. Like I'm kind of like the Hannah Montana of agriculture.
Okay, I love that.
So I think that that's kind of how I tied them together, and I use that to my benefit as much as possible. When I first started, I was terrified of that. When I first started in this industry, I wanted to be like everyone else. I wanted to fit that image. And once I realized that that wasn't getting me anywhere, that I wasn't actually passionate about trying to fit in, when I started playing to my differences and like my love of my background in like more of the city life kind of area, that's when my page kind of blew up, and that's when I really found success in advocacy and and in my own personal venture with like my cows and things like that.
Yeah, and how cool for you to be able to find your own way, because I know it's hard, right? You the whole compare game. Like, okay, they have a beautiful feed and this amount of followers and blah 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 blah. And so like trying to find your own way through all of that is very complicated. And so I commend you on that because I think you've done a great job in the way that you've done it, and you've kept it funny and lighthearted, which is, I think, if you can connect to people in that way, I think you're winning at what you're doing anyway. So
Yeah, thanks.
commending you on that for sure.
Thank you. It's definitely difficult, and I've noticed this, especially recently. I was telling my boyfriend this the other night. I was like, I don't know why, but the last week I've had a lot of people message me their opinions, and I was like, and they were like me not asking for their opinions, and some of them were rude, and I was like, I know I signed up for this. I know this is how it is, but it is definitely difficult putting yourself out there in this
Totally.
type of way. And me trying to keep it lighthearted because I'm like, listen, like we don't need drama or anything. I don't want it. But it's like you definitely get people who are very opinionated on social media, and that's discouraging. So I do think, and I try to speak very humbly about it, because I know I haven't done this on my own. I know I've had a lot of friends and connections who have, people like you who, have believed in me and supported me. But I do feel like I am forging this path, and it's scary because I am trying to do something different, and I'm purposely, I am different anyway, but I'm purposely trying to play on that and really accentuate that. And it's scary because there are a lot of people who don't like it, and who are
Yep.
gonna tell you they don't like it. And I'm like,
Right,
"Ooh."
yeah. Opens up to, like, a whole new level of criticism too when you're trying to be different sometimes.
Yes. Oh man. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not the kind of I'm so sensitive. Like, I'm a big baby. And so I don't take criticism well at all. And I try to remind myself that sometimes it's good. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's good. But I'm like, sometimes people just message you and you're like, hello, I did not need your negativity today. And I
Right.
never needed it. So it's just, that's just part of it. But I still love it regardless. I'm going to do it anyway, which I think there's a lot of power in that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep, absolutely. And taking kind of a step back, because I jumped into something because you said something that I was like, perfect, great, next question. But let's talk about your page too. And it started as a blog, right? Or did it start as a page and then a blog? Kind of walk us through all of that.
Yeah, that's a good question, because obviously I'm all over the place with everything. So how Girls Eat Beef 2 started was, um, I I do have a blog, by the way. I don't use it anymore, but I did when I first started advocacy in agriculture in 2017. I started out with a blog.
Okay.
But my Girls Eat Beef 2 page started out as an Instagram page. It was called Girl in a Grocery Store, and it was gonna be about me, a single woman, learning how to navigate a grocery store and how to like cook beef and how to do things in the kitchen. And I very, 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 very quickly learned that that was not gonna happen,
Not
because
your thing, huh?
no, 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 no. And I still, my boyfriend cooks all the time. Like, I kind of help. I dabble in it, but I am not like, you will not find me enjoying myself in the
In the
kitchen for the
kitchen.
most
That's
part.
funny.
I'm like, I have an oven mitt that my aunt gave me, and it has like a girl on it, and it has like a ribbon on it, and it says most likely to microwave. And I think that describes me as a person. So I really need to put that in my bio somewhere.
Yes,
But
yes.
but so I I'm pretty sure I can never remember exactly when I started it, because there's some blurred lines. But I think I started that page either really late 2017 or really early 2018.
Okay.
And I started it because I know you didn't ask this, but I started it because I was trying to get accepted to the top of the class program, which is, if the audience doesn't know, is an extension of the Masters of Beef Advocacy program.
Okay.
MBA is just like, it's a virtual, um, it's like a training to learn how to advocate beef, right? And it's kind of set up like the beef quality assurance. You have like 60 days to complete this course, and you get a certificate. And anyone who completes that, they can then apply to be top of the class. Which top of the class every year, they take like, I think just 10 advocates from the beef industry who have applied for this, and they take them for a 3-day training at the NCBA headquarters in Colorado. And so I started this page because I knew at that point that the beef industry was where I wanted to be. And I really wanted to start accomplishing things as an advocate. And so I applied to that, and I applied 3 times to that and did not get accepted until like the 4th time I applied. But that page was to help me establish myself as an advocate.
Gotcha.
Um, so in all of 2018, I kind of deserted it for a while in 2018 because I moved back from Alabama to California, and there's a lot going on, and I just felt really discouraged. I was like, I don't have anything to post about beef advocacy. I don't know what my messaging is. I have no idea what I want. And so In 2019, yes, 2019 is when they opened up applications again for top of the class after I'd already been denied like 3 times. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it. I'm going to try to apply again. Like, I'm going to pick this page back up and I'm going to figure it out. So I applied for top of the class, got accepted. And I got accepted because I know a friend who like referred me and said, you need her in this, like she needs to be here. And I'm so thankful for her. Her name is Charmaine. And I was told that I was accepted. And so I went to this 3-day training with a few, like, I think it was, how many did I say? There were 10 of us.
Mhm.
We were all women, which was really cool. And we were all from all over the United States. And I got there and we all started kind of talking about our pages. And all these women had like pretty established pages, right? Like they were doing really good things in the industry. And I was this like newbie and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And over the course of 3 days, I started thinking, what do I want my messaging to be? And I knew I wanted it to be like women empowerment. Like I wanted it to really highlight strong women in the industry. And I also wanted to play off the fact that I was a beginner. And so
Yeah.
I wanted it to be a place where people who weren't familiar with the industry or people who were just starting out, they could come and they could realize that, hey, I'm not alone. Like, I don't know a lot about certain things and I don't want to ask the dumb questions. So I want her to answer these I want her to ask these dumb
Right.
questions of the industry. And so I just wanted it to be like real. I didn't want it to be a platform as someone who's been in ad communications. I didn't want it to be something where it was like this perfect news feed where all the filters were exactly the same and everything was staged. And there's no way I can pay a photographer to take that many photos of me. And all those things that's awesome. And influencers need to have that, I think, in a certain aspect. But I wanted to show that you don't have to have that. You don't have to look like everyone else to be an advocate, to be an influencer, or to
Right.
inspire people. So I came away from that 3-day training with Girls Eat Beef Too. And that's where that was born. In 2019, I transformed. The end of 2019, I had maybe 800 followers. And I had a goal to get to 1,000 by the end of 2020. And here we are, I'm at like 4,600. So I I would say I hate to brag about that, but I love to brag about that because it wasn't easy, but it was also amazing because I had so many people who supported me. My friend Katie Schrock is one of them who she really helped boost that. And just, I think I also kind of came into my own when it like came to my messaging. I realized, you know what? I'm not going to pretend like I fit into this industry anymore. I'm just going to show people that, hey, I don't know what I'm doing either. And I'm just going to do it anyway. And so that's kind of that's the long story of how I, created that page and how it exists now.
Well, yeah, and I think because you have such a unique story of just wanting to be real, and I know everybody says that, and then you go and look at their page and it's perfection, right? But
Yeah.
like just the fact that you exactly what you said, strong women in agriculture who maybe don't have time to sit there with a photographer for 12 hours, or they just want to show what the heck is happening in their daily lives because that's the real part of agriculture. So yeah, I think the way you've done it and the way you've seen your growth through it, first of all, yes, it is so stinking hard to grow on social media, whether it's a business or a personal page or whatever you're doing. And then to have the whole agriculture side of things too is it's a small niche, I think, in the fact that there's like the influencer side of things. Like it's not like fitness, it's not like home decor, it's its own thing. And there's a lot of navigating that still has to be done within it, I think. And there's like these top names that everybody knows, and then it's like a drop off after that. And so I think the fact that you're like able to do it in like a very real way, with your own spin on it is just so cool because it's you.
Well, I appreciate that you say that because one, it gives me like confidence too, because I'm definitely still like every day I'm like, am I doing things
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
and if sometimes like I try not to get too involved in it, but sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't gotten a couple followers in like, a few days. So
Mhm.
am I like, did, did
I'm
something happen?
done. Great, I'm done.
But that's why one of my goals too, and even more so this year, I'm wanting to share the advocates that aren't very known. I'm wanting to help people kind of break into it a little bit. And I think it's hard. There's a reason why those influencers are doing as well as they are. You do put a lot of work into it, and it's not something that really happens overnight. Like, I know sometimes people might think, like, when I talk the way I do about my following growing so quickly, I think that they think that it was easy,
Right.
but it was not.
Yeah.
I put a lot of effort into that, but at the same time, like, I agree, there are very few advocates in our industry that stand out, and their stuff is always shared, or they're always talked about, or they're always awarded things.
Mhm.
I want to be that voice for people who, you know, are like me, who want to be the voice and want to have more recognition. And so I want to help them kind of get to a bigger point in the industry, in advocacy on social media, and help give tips on, like, share stuff that's shareable, share stuff that's savable, share stuff that I always hate to tell people this, because I'm like, I personally think that people don't really care about me on social media.
Yes, I feel the same way.
Yeah, like, I mean, for the most part, like, a stranger isn't following. Like, I have my own personal social media,
Right.
like my own personal Instagram. And this was my trick. This is why I created a whole separate page instead of trying to create it on my personal page, because most people don't really care about me, but they care about my messaging.
Right.
They care about what I stand for. And the things that I share, or the things that I create, I try to make those purposely to where I know people are going to share them, or I know people are going to relate to them. I try to show a little bit of my life anyway, because I think that's healthy for social media anyway. But it's definitely, like, it's taken a lot of work for me to, like, figure out how I can make it work. And so I want to be there for people who are trying to work on that too, because I'm by no means an expert, and I'm by no means going to tell you. There are a lot of people that sit here and tell you, always use hashtags. You need to use reels. You need to do all these, like, social media trends. And
Right.
I'm like, let's be real. I'm doing a billion other things in my life, and I'm, in a sense, I've monetized this page because I, sell, like, my decals and things like that. And I think it's helped me get a lot of um, opportunities, like doing podcasts like
Mhm.
this. Really cool. But realistically, I'm like, I'm not making money on
Right.
this page.
Right.
So I'm not going to spend all this time, like, hashtagging the crap out of oh, I guess I can't say crap, can I?
You're good.
Hashtagging all of my, posts on social
Right.
media. I'm not going to sit there, and video content is so difficult. And, you could go on and on about the things that you should be doing on your page. And I'm like, nope, I'm not going to follow that, because that's not going to work for me. My mental capacity cannot handle that. So I think that's kind of another, like, angle to my page too, is like helping those people who are trying to grow. So I try to share everyone, like, everyone who reshares me, or everyone who promotes me. I want to, like, promote them. I want to help, those people kind of break into the world, because we need, I personally think we need more voices. We need more diverse voices, and we need people from different perspectives. And when we have, like, a handful of advocates who are all the same and constantly sharing their messaging, I love a lot of those top advocates, but I also don't agree with a lot of them on a lot of things, because sometimes I'm like, well, you look at it from your perspective, but this is my perspective, and we all need to, like, hear more of it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm coming from, is just help the small people.
Right.
I'm the blue collar of the blue collar. It's like an inception.
Right. Well, and I think too, and I want to get into kind of your heifers and everything too here in a minute. But I think both of us are in a unique position too, because we're young, right? And so
Mhm.
then people look at us with a couple different things. They say, "Oh, you don't have enough experience," or "You don't live on a cattle ranch with 500 head. Like, how do you know what you're talking about?" So I think
Mhm.
that's one thing too, even personally sharing about what I have going on, or what I'm doing with my one bottle calf that I have now in Texas. Like, I feel weird posting that, because it's like, yes, I have a really strong agriculture background, but am I enough to be able to be putting these messages out there type of situation. So I think that's also a challenging thing for people of our age group. And, you know, it adds into the whole women in agriculture, young women in agriculture, and all of that kind of stuff too.
Well, yeah, I'm like, I wish I could do like the preach emoji right now because yes to all of that. But okay, so I feel the exact same as you. Like sometimes I feel so ridiculous posting about my 3 cows. I'm
Yes.
like, these are my cows. Like I can count all of them and I don't have to worry about what kind of record book I have because I literally can keep track of them no matter what I'm doing.
Right.
But I think that it's important, and I hope I've shown you that. I think it's important to be like, yeah, I'm proud of this animal that I have. I am putting all of my effort into this animal, and one day I'm hopefully going to have, a lot more of them.
Mhm.
And that's why my motto is, like start slow, start small, start simple, because not all of us and I can't say I don't like this point of view. Like, not all of us inherited land, not all of us inherited a family business, not all of us had anything to go back to,
Right.
right? After college. And a lot of people who have done that, they also, it also isn't easy for them. It's not like they were just like, oh, here's land, here, take it.
Right.
But, they were given an advantage that maybe someone like myself or I'm assuming you didn't have. Like, we have the background in agriculture in different ways, but we didn't have the access to the resources that allow us to just easily have 100 head of cattle
Mhm.
or anything like that. I'm paying everything with my heifers right now. Everything I've done has been out of pocket,
Right.
and that is not cheap. And I'm also not working full time right now. I'm going back to school, so I'm literally putting my heart and soul and a lot of things into these heifers, and that's what I can handle right now. And so I think that it's just important. My story is important in the sense that, not that I'm achieving all these crazy cool things, like it's not like I'm running a huge operation. It's just that I'm going for it and I'm sharing it and I'm being proud of it, because a lot of people realistically are in our situation, I
Right.
think.
Well,
And
and you're doing it, right? You're doing it and you're doing it your own way.
yeah, yes. And I think that there's like, I keep seeing quotes about this and it irritates me because it's like on all of these like influencer pages about like, um, hustle quietly or something like that. And one, I hate the word hustle because honestly, like I almost posted a video about this on my page earlier, but I'm like, you know what? I'm not about the hustle. I'm like about the like self-care and like R&R and like binging. And so there was a quote, and it's like, hustle quietly. And I'm like, no, be proud of the things you're doing. Even if you haven't like gotten to the level that you want to get to, shout it to the world and be like, I'm doing work for this and I'm not going to be quiet about it because this is hard. So, like, be proud of what you have, even if it's one animal, even if
Right.
it's, like, even if you're having to do things like me where I have to like physically measure my animals like girth and everything, like that's cool. And I think a lot of people liked that because they were like, I didn't realize you could do
Yeah.
that. It's like it's things like that where I think some people would be embarrassed by it, and I'm like, nope, I'm gonna be resourceful about it. And it's just a different perspective, right? And not a lot of people get to see that, and I think that's what people enjoy about it.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of, I mean, your cattle and everything, so let's talk about that, about how you acquired them because you got them in a unique way, and then kind of like your plans with them too.
Yeah. So, okay. So in the beginning of 2020, I had like written down some goals of what I wanted to hopefully accomplish. And a few of those pretty much revolved around my well, I didn't even have cattle at that point, right? It revolved around my dreams of having cows. So at that point, I had been kind of really wanting to be a part of the ranching industry for 3 years at that point. And so I, it was in May in 2020. So, and like, I think a month or so before that, maybe a little bit before, I called a few people and was like, hey, I'm wanting to get cattle. And So, when coronavirus and stuff kind of started and we all got the stimulus check, or most of us did, that was kind of what funded the animals. And when I was like, I'm going to do this, I called people. I called some, like my uncle and my stepdad, who have been in the industry for some time. And I said, hey, I want to do this. Like, what do I need to know? Where should I go? Like, just trying to get everything straight, right? Suki, go lay down. Go lay down. Sorry, she's like pushing my coffee table. Um, and I was like, what do I need to have ready for this? So they told me everything, and I ended up calling a stockyard in my home county. And I told him, I was like, I'm new to this. This is what I'm looking for. And he was like, okay, yeah, we'll get you everything that you need. Here's someone that should be bringing in. At that point, I was actually only going to do steers. I was going to do feeder steers. And he was like, we have someone who brings them in. Like, I'll call you when he brings them. Well, about a week, I think it was a week or so before I was even supposed to like go get the steers. Um, the stockyards owner called me and he was like, so we don't have the steers, but I do have some heifers in right now. Like, would you be interested? Well, when I first kind of started dreaming about having my own operation, I wanted cow calf, because that's what my stepdad does in Alabama. And I was briefly kind of exposed to that while we lived there. And, I'm a woman. I love babies. Like, I love the calves. So, but as a beginner, I was like, that's daunting because you're going to deal with that. Well, I didn't listen to my gut. I was just like, okay, whatever. Yes, I'm going to do it. And I got to move my laptop here. And I was like, sure, I'll do it. And so I think it was like maybe 2 weeks or so later, I went and picked them up. And so it turns out that they came from the sheriff's facility in Tulare County. And I found out that I actually had already known, because I wrote an article on it like a month before, that the inmates had raised these heifers. And I was like, this is so cool. I just wrote about this, like, way to come full circle.
Totally.
So yeah, so I got them in like Mother's Day weekend, and it's been quite a journey since then. It's there. I've learned so much, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's not been easy, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, and so now I saw too that you've had a nutritionist kind of look at the feed and everything that you're doing, and they were just cleared for breeding too, weren't they?
Yeah. So that's the other thing about like being a beginner in all of this is you don't do it alone. Like, there's no part of this that I've been able to do alone. I've done a lot of like research and Googling, but for the most part, like I have a friend who is a nutritionist, and thankfully, like, he kind of walked me through what I needed to know about my hay and like how to test it. And then I connected with a vet who he's younger, like he's about my age, which is really nice because I think he's easier to communicate with.
Right.
And he's been willing to come out. He's been willing to come out and deal with my little like pin setup because I don't have a chute yet. And thankfully he's been really patient about it, because the last time was a little bit dramatic. But yeah, so he gave them the clear to breed. And I actually just this morning, one of my other friends, who he actually works for Select Sires,
Okay.
and I'll have to give him a shout out because he owns Sustaina Beef, which is a page that I usually interact with and share on my page a lot. But he just ordered the bull semen for me this morning. And so we're going to be, oh, I'm so stressed out about it. We're going to be breeding right around Valentine's Day is what the goal is. So my challenge with it, just to add another, thing to my stress. So I'm starting an intern program with my teaching credential in the fall. So I'll be a teacher while working, or going back to school. So I'll be going to school teaching. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to be calving as well. My first time with these heifers that are first time calvers.
Right.
I was like, this is not a good mix.
Why did I do this?
Yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. So I'm trying to like target it to like Thanksgiving break as best as possible. I know I can't control that, but that is my goal. And so that's a whole other like wrench into everything because I'm like really on a timeline and I'm
Yeah.
like, I've got a lot of things going on. So it'll be interesting. I'm praying that everything goes well. And that's why I'm like really focusing on like my calving knees and everything on my
Yeah.
bulls because I'm like, I don't need to worry about anything else right now. I just need them to shoot out and just be go once they land. So we'll see how it goes. And of course, I'll keep everyone updated on all of that. And hopefully this weekend, we'll actually be purchasing a head gate and having our own little, like, creating our own little facilities. So we don't have any more crazy setup for everything. But it's been fun. Maybe for just me and not anyone else involved. But my poor boyfriend, he's this big, like what is he, 6'2", like just this big old guy. And he has to do everything for me because he's big and like can do all the heavy lifting. So me, I'm like, oh, that was fun. That was a good time. And he was like, they stepped on me. I was like having to keep the panels together. And I'm like, I'm really sorry, but it's been great. It's good to know people in the industry for
Oh, for
sure.
sure. Yeah, definitely. The industry is small, but or it's big, but it's small when you can
Mhm.
know people and rely on them. It's definitely helpful.
Yes, yes.
And now that you are in and you're committed with heifers and you're full blown in agriculture now, what has kind of been your favorite part about being involved in the industry?
I think that there's a lot that I love about it, but I think the community, which is an interesting thing for me to say because I'm not like I hate to say this because it makes me sound awful, but I'm not a people person. Like I find it hard for me to socialize sometimes, and I do find myself just wanting to hang out with my cows and not like talk to people.
Mhm.
But I think that I'm learning that there are a lot of really cool people in this industry
Yeah,
that they've come to me and said, I want to help you. And whether or not they also benefited from that, it's just nice to know that people can sit there and like answer my questions without judgment or understand that I don't know what I'm doing sometimes. And they're still willing to not criticize me for any mistakes I've made. They're just like, hey, you're doing what you can. Like, you're going to make mistakes. They're being the cheerleaders that they don't have to be.
right.
And I think that that's amazing because I do think that there's a stigma, and I know that there is a reason there's a stigma because you get some people who are like crotchety and like, this is the way that we have to do it. And I don't want any young people involved in this. I don't want any women who don't know what they're doing involved. Like, there are some people who are like that, right, in this industry. And so it's nice, it's refreshing to like just know that there are people that are like cheering you on and like celebrating your differences and celebrating the fact that you're wanting to be a part of this industry rather than trying to be like you can't sit with us.
Totally. Yep.
So that's been what's really cool. And that like going to CattleCon and being a part of my county cattlewomen's and things like that. No one ever said, Markie, you can't do it. Markie, not true. I've had some people who have directly told me, and I've posted about that, like people who have directly told me, like, you don't know what you're doing. You don't belong in this. But for the most part, I've had these women in my like cattle women's group or, people at CattleCon and things like that who have said like, you're welcome here. Like, we're going to accept you and you don't even have to have cows to be a part of this. So it's just been really cool to learn that there are some amazing people in this industry.
Yeah, that's for sure. I can definitely attest to that as well. The agriculture community is one that's really kind of unlike any other.
Yeah, yes, that is very true.
Well, Marky, I wanted to say thank you so much for spending time with me today. And to close out, the Dirt has a new feature. We are going to do rapid fire questions at the end of at the end of every episode. That was a mouthful. So if you're ready, I will start with the first one.
Okay, I don't know
Uh,
if I'm ready, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
okay.
That's my motto, right? I don't know if
Yes.
I'm ready. I'm gonna do it anyway.
So if you could pick any superpower, what would you pick?
Oh, Wow, this was supposed to be rapid fire, and I don't even know. I think it would be like being able to control time. Like I'm all about like Doctor Strange and everything, like Marvel superheroes, and I think that that's really cool because I would just go all over the place with that.
Alrighty, the next one is your favorite holiday.
Oh, Christmas, hands down.
Me
Oh
too.
my gosh, you should have seen my house. Like we just bought a house like in November, and it, I don't even have any like normal decorations. We just put up all Christmas decorations, and now that we took them down, like the house is empty because
Empty.
I just put up all Christmas decorations. So yeah, 100% my favorite
Me
holiday.
too. I love Christmas.
Yeah.
And the last one is if you could travel anywhere, where would you go?
Oh, anywhere in the mountains. I love to be in the mountains, so it doesn't matter where. I just go as long as it's not snowing. I hate the snow.
Hate
So
the snow. See, I'm not. I like the snow until it just snowed here, and I was like, yeah, I could never live in the snow.
yeah, I don't blame you.
Okay, so yeah, Marky, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I have really enjoyed our time together. But where can people connect with you if they're wanting to follow along or get in touch?
So obviously they can go to Girls Eat Beef too on Instagram or Facebook. And otherwise, if they want to follow along in like my personal, life and everything, my bad takes on life and stuff, they can follow my personal pages, Markie Hageman on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
Great. Well, everybody be sure to follow Marky, and I look forward to seeing the girls get bred and hopefully have some cows on the ground soon, right?
Yes, I have baby fever so bad.
Well, thank you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. You too.